The Trunchbull let out a yell. The Trunchbull lifted the water jug and poured some water in her glass, and suddenly, with the water, out came the long slimy newt straight into the glass. Plop! The Trunchbull let out a yell and lifted off her chair as though a firecracker had gone off underneath her. She stared at the creature twisting and wiggling in the glass. The fires of fury and hatred were smoldering in the Trunchbull's small black eyes. Matilda, she barked. Stand up. Who, me? Matilda said. What have I done? Stand up, you disgusting little cockroach, you filthy little maggot. You're a vile, appalling, malicious little brute. The Trunchbull was shouting. You're not fit to be in this school. You ought to be behind bars. That's where you ought to be. I shall have the perfect chase you down the corridor and out of the front door with hockey sticks. The Trunchbull was in such a rage that her face had taken on a boiled color, and little flakes of fruit were gathering at the corners of her mouth. But Matilda was also beginning to see red. She had had absolutely nothing to do with the beastly creature in the glass. By golly, she thought, that rotten Trunchbull isn't going to pin this one on me. The leader of books. It's a funny thing about mothers and fathers, even when their one child is the most disgusting little blazer you could ever imagine, they still think that he or she is wonderful. Some parents go further. They become so blinded by adoration they manage to convince themselves their child has quality of genius. Well, there is nothing very wrong. There is nothing very wrong with all this. It's the way of the world. It is only when the parents begin telling us about the brilliance of their one revolting upstream that we start shouting, bring us a basin. We're going to be sick. School teachers suffer a good deal from having to listen to this sort of twaddle from proud parents, but they usually get their own back when the time comes to write the end of term report. If I were a teacher, I would cook up some real scorches for the children of doting parents. Your son Maximilian, I would write, is a total washout. I hope you have a family business you can push him into when he leaves school, because he sure as heck won't get a job anywhere else. Or, if I were feeling a lyrical that day, I might write, it is a curious truth that grasshoppers have their hearing organs in the size of the abdomen. Your daughter, Vanessa, judging by what she's learnt this term, has no hearing organ at all. I might even delve deeper. into natural history and say the periodical Cicada spent 6 years as a grub in underground and no more than 6 days as a free creature of sunlight and air. Your son Wilfred has spent 6 years as a grub in this school, and we are still waiting for him to emerge from the cell. A particularly poisonous little girl might sting me into saying Fiona has the same glacial beauty as an iceberg. But unlike the iceberg, she has absolutely nothing below the surface. I think I might enjoy writing end of term report for the stingers in my class. But enough of that, we have to get on. Occasionally, one comes across parents who take the opposite line, who show no interest at all in their children, and these, of course, are far worse than the doting ones. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were two such parents. They had a son called Michael and a daughter called Matilda. And the parents looked upon Matilda in particular as nothing more than a scrub. A scrub is something you have to put up with until the time comes when you can pick it off and flick it away. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood looked forward and more enormously to the time when they could pick their little daughter off and flick her away. Preferably into the next county or even further than that. It is bad enough when parents treat ordinary children and as though they were scabs and bunions. But it becomes somehow a lot worse when the child in question is extraordinary. And by that, I mean sensitive and brilliant. Matilda was both of these things, but above all she was brilliant. Her mind was so nimble and she was so quick to learn that her ability should have been obvious even to the most half-witted of parents. But Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were both so gumless and so wrapped up in their own silly little lives that they failed to notice anything unusual about their daughter. To tell the truth, I thought they would have noticed had she crawled into the house with a broken leg. Matilda's brother Michael was a perfectly normal boy, but their sister, as I said, was something to make your eyes pop. By the age of 1.5, by the age of 1.5. Her speech was perfect, and she knew as many words as most grown-ups. The parents, instead of applauding her, called her a noise chatterbox and told her sharply that small girls should be seen and not heard. Not heard. By the time she was 3, Matilda had taught herself to read by studying newspapers and magazines that lay around the house. At the age of 4, she could read fast and well, and she naturally began hankering after books. The only book in the whole of this enlightened household was something called Easy Cooking, belonging to her mother. And when she had read this from cover to cover and had learnt all the recipes by heart, she decided she wanted something more interesting. Daddy, she said, do you think you could buy me a book? A book, he said. What do you want a flaming book for? To read, Daddy. What's wrong with the telly? For heaven's sake. We've got a lovely telly with a 12-inch screen, and now you come asking for a book. You're getting spoiled, my girl. Nearly every weekday afternoon, Matilda was left alone in the house. Her brother, 5 years older than her, went to school. Her father went to work, and her mother went out playing bingo in a town 8 miles away. Mrs. Wormwood was hooked on bingo and played it 5 afternoons a week. On the afternoon of the day when her father had refused to buy her a book, Matilda set out all by herself to walk to the public library in the village. When she arrived, she introduced herself to the librarian, Mrs. Palfs. She asked if she might sit a while and read the book. Mrs. Palfs, slightly taken aback at the arrival of such a tiny girl, unaccompanied by a parent, nevertheless told her she was very welcome. Where are the children's books, please? Matilda asked. They are over there, on those lower shelves. Mrs. Powell told her. Would you like me to help you find a nice one with lots of pictures in it? No, thank you, Matilda said. I'm sure I can manage. From then on, every afternoon, as soon as her mother had left for bingo, Matilda would toddle down to the library. She took only 10 minutes, and this allowed her to glorious hours sitting quietly by herself in a cozy corner, devouring one book after another. When she had read every single children's book in the place. She started wandering round in search of something else. Mrs. Phelps, who had been watching her, who with passionation for the past few weeks, now got up from her desk and went over to her. "Can I help you, Matilda?" she asked. "I'm wondering what to read next," Matilda said. I've finished all the children's books." "You mean you looked at the pictures?" "Yes, but I read the books as well." Mrs. Phelps looked down at Matilda from her great height, and Matilda looked right back up at her. "I thought some were very poor," Matilda said, "but others were lovely. I like the secret garden best of all. It was full of mystery. The mystery of Sid leaning forward in order to read. And a strange sight it was. This tiny, dark, hairy person sitting there with her feet now nowhere near touching the floor, totally absorbed in the wonderful adventures of Pip and old Miss Harbisham and her I don't know. Finish. See you next time.